From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, and real therapists. You can submit your questions anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. This week, Nick has grown a fantastic mustache. That's it. On to the show. And now, broadcasting from the churn, that guy's Dr. Jim Jobin. This is Nick Tangeman. It's time for some Pod Therapy.
Man, I want a mustache. I've been trying now for probably 4 weeks. And the best I've got is just like a little wiry, like nothing. It's terrible.
I did see it the other day when we did our
support group.
Support group. On Zoom.
Wow, it was visible. And that's huge.
A little bit. Yeah, when you lean into the camera, I could kind of see it, and I was like, "Oh, yeah.
Good for him."
But I was thinking today. So
I did not notice it.
But I was thinking today, because I had the full beard, and what actually started this is I'm a big Minnesota Twins fan. And so I found this YouTube channel called Classic Twins, and they have all of their old classic games on. So this whole week I've been watching the whole the 91 World Series. And I'm seeing all these guys on both teams, all these pitchers, with their mustaches.
Oh yeah.
From 1991. I'm like, man, I think I could do this mustache thing. And what do I have to lose? Because I'm just at home anyway.
Yep.
So I shaved it.
Your girlfriend.
Yeah.
So when did Laura
she's
move
gone.
Yeah,
she left. She's gone.
Yeah, but how's the mustache?
It was too much even for the Nazi.
Yeah. It was
the mustache was too wide.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Too wide. So I grew this, and then I shaved the beard, left the mustache, and then I was thinking, I am the perfect yin to your yang.
Because you can just grow
Between
a freaking mustache instantly.
Yeah. So
I've been so jealous of your facial hair.
We have the exact
for so
opposite
long.
facial hair.
Oh, it's terrible. I just wish I could. I just want a full beard. Like, just a full one. The whole business. I want the damn mustache. I want the whole thing. But no.
Yeah, my beard is getting downright bushy.
I noticed that when I was watching your robe time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. For whatever reason, when watching that, somebody had commented on it.
Yeah.
And then that's when I was like, oh yeah, that's getting long.
It's getting bushy.
Yeah.
Go
getting
for
out of
it.
Control.
Just live your dream.
It's really because SJ hates it.
I'm
That's
only
really
doing
the
this
main
to piss
reason.
her off.
Yeah. I don't even like it. It annoys me.
I don't want this anymore.
We all have to make sacrifices, Jacob. Yeah.
Yep. SJ's not going to annoy herself, though.
That's right. Well, I'm jelly of your beard, and I'm jelly of Nick's mustache. So you can both go to hell.
It's okay. Keep working on it. It'll come
I'm hanging
through.
in there. It's not
You'll
getting
get there,
any better.
slugger.
You'll get there.
See, that's the problem, though. Is it's like all the hairs that will grow have already demonstrated. Like, those are already there. They're just getting longer, but there's no mustache. There's just it's like this really sparse, it's just bad. It's just really bad.
Yeah.
So, not loving it, but I'm glad that you saw it in the support group, and glad that you guys came. Thank you, everybody who came to the support group. We did it again last week and had a huge showing, a record showing, technically.
Yeah.
Thanks to Jacob.
I guess.
Jacob pushed us right over the edge, got to 20.
Yeah.
And we started a new sweepstakes, which is naming a potted plant. So, yeah. There's a lot of good names that are actually on Twitter. Have you seen this? Have you seen our potted plant name suggestion?
Yeah, I did.
I haven't seen the suggestions. What are the suggestions?
Oh my gosh! All right, I'm pulling
you have
them
that up?
Yep, I'm pulling it up right now.
There's so the background behind that for those of you listening in our support group. Who was it? Heather?
Oh yeah,
plant?
I think it was Heather. Yeah.
You should know whose plant it is.
I know.
We'll patch that together in post.
It was insert name here.
We probably won't. But so we decided because I guess we don't have enough to do, enough entertaining things. We decided that we're going to hold a contest to name a houseplant. So the first one obviously was Planty McPlantface.
Yes,
that was the first.
A very strong contender. Yeah, I liked that one.
Somebody wanted to name it Guinea Pig.
Which is solid. And that was because Easy Whip got 2 guinea pigs, and we wanted to name one of those Potted Plant. And, yeah. But his wife will not let us name his guinea pigs, so we struck out on that one.
Yeah. I can't remember some of the other ones, but
I've got it open.
So we've got that going
on Twitter. There's Pandy, Geoff, or Jeff. I still don't. Dan probably did that because he knew I would say Geoff. Well done, Dan.
100% sure that's why you did that.
Pretty solid. Sir Foliage Von Tabletop from Robert. I thought that was a good one.
Ooh, good one.
This is a good one. Ulysses S. Plant. I like that. I nominated Aladdin because if you look at the plant, it does look like it kind of has a feel like it might be from that region of the world. Let's see. Planty McPlantface, Corduroy. I don't know what the corduroy reference is, but it's in there.
I don't believe that the plant deserves a name. Not until it gets off the pot.
Another nomination was Potter, but you have to say it in an Alan Rickman voice.
Very good.
Okay.
Potter.
So go ahead and do that.
Yeah, Potter.
That's it. Huh?
That was it.
Sir Reginald.
No, Jim, an Alan
Longbottom
Rickman
IV.
voice.
Yeah, that was definitely Sean Connery.
Sorry. I only have one not American accent voice, and it's always Sean Connery, no matter who I'm supposed to be. Let's see. Corey put in Sir Reginald Longbottom IV. David Palmer was another one. I like that one. Ted wants it to just be Steve.
Steve is solid.
Steve is a solid
Steve
one.
Is, yes.
SpongeBob Square Plant. Or no, wait. SpongeBob Square Pant. Okay, yeah. And then Spike. So, of those, I think that my favorite is Ulysses S. Plant. It's just so good. So, it's my
Ulysses
nomination.
S. Plant is solid.
Yeah.
It's a lot better than
solid
Aladdin.
name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aladdin's
was
terrible.
not my strongest effort, I think.
Bring your A game, Jobin.
Yeah, you definitely
that
half-assed
is it.
that one.
That's what I got.
Very disappointed.
That was it. Guys, this was 100% of my creativity at work. That was a game from me.
Well, that I believe.
Yes. That's the thing. You just got to keep in mind, I'm not very good at creative things. The show is literally called Pod Therapy.
Yes.
Anyway,
That's true.
Thanks to everybody who came to our special group, and thank you for everybody who's sharing. And keep an eye out, guys. Those of you who listen to the show, one of the things I really liked about this group was that there were more people who joined the support group that are not necessarily part of the Patreon. And so that was really cool because, just getting to know more listeners that haven't really interacted with us on social media before or haven't really been part of kind of the in-grouping that, the regular people that we chat with. And that was really cool. So awesome to see more people in there, and everybody's welcome to it. Keep an eye out. We try to post it all over our social media whenever it comes out. And this time we did a good job of just posting the link directly, and people jumped in. So very cool to have everybody. Definitely welcome everybody in the future to come back. I think it's something we're going to keep doing every couple of weeks.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was great to meet people, and put faces with names, that we've had to read on Patreon for a long time and completely mispronounced. As it turns out.
Yeah, that was nice. Katie told us how to pronounce her name, which was good.
Yes, yes.
And I've immediately forgotten it, so can't help her.
Chawalski, I believe.
Oh,
I believe it was Katie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got to emphasize the E.
The Q was silent.
Yeah, the Q. That's right. That's what threw me too. Was that damn Q?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we got an A block today, Jim.
Yeah, we do. So one of the things we've been hearing a lot about is just I think what people are experiencing is just the pain of dealing with this whole COVID thing, but also the pain of watching other people suffer and trying to be there for other people. And I think I'm hearing about it in a lot of my individual sessions that I'm doing with people throughout the week. And then in the support group, it came out a lot too, was just how do you support other people, especially whenever it's starting to kind of burn you out. And this is something that actually in the last episode had come to us as a question. And so we thought we'd do a more structured A block that kind of outlines some of the techniques that we actually do recommend to deal with compassion fatigue. We had mentioned this in the last episode that as therapists, whenever we're training other therapists, this is something that we have to deal with, and we have to teach them how do you encounter people that might be going through a hard time and do that for a living in a way that doesn't burn out, right? How can you continue to be genuine? How can you continue to be supportive? How can you continue to care? Even whenever things are kind of exhausting with that. And so there's this thing that we call compassion fatigue, and that's kind of the name that we give that burnout or that inability to continue to care, and sort of, how do you restructure that? So Nick and I brought together a list of 10 kind of good suggestions, and we thought, it'd be a good A block, just to kind of roll those out for you guys. So I'll do number one. The first technique that we usually encourage people whenever they're experiencing compassion fatigue and just feeling that burnout is just remembering to try to sustain your compassion. Now, here's what that means. You think about the concept of like sustainable energy, or you think about sustainable methods. Sustainable usually means that you're not using it all up at once. And compassion, I think, is similar to that. You've got to kind of like think carefully about how you're going to be giving it out and like trying to do your best to make it a sustainable resource, which is allowing it time to replenish, taking those breaks from people, but then also trying to bring it in a way that is meaningful, is authentic, is genuine, but is also sustainable. And so, that's an interesting way to think about compassion, but that would be the first technique to deal with compassion fatigue, is to try to have sustainable compassion, which is to be thoughtful in the way that you're bringing it to other people.
Yeah. We should probably also give credit to this list where you found this. This is from compassionfatigue.org.
Yeah.
Is that link that we found.
Oh, you found my website.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah, Jacob, this is some amazing stuff. I mean, for a life coach, this is
I had no idea that he's been writing all this in the background for years. He just never talks about it. He's so humble.
Yeah.
You think I'm just over here playing computer games when you guys talk?
Yeah, I completely
Reading
thought
a book.
you were not listening at all, but
He's been writing websites and then holding out on us and then not giving it to us. Huh.
It didn't seem like something you guys would be interested in.
yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. I wonder how many books we've read that are just under a pseudonym that he wrote. That
Most of them.
Right.
Most of the books you've read.
Yeah.
He's a very prolific
Jacob
author.
Herman Melville Smith.
As they called me in high school.
Yeah.
And so the second one is practicing authentic, sustainable self-care daily. So this is really interesting too. That the practicing self-care seems very obvious that's something we should all be doing, but there is something on this website. A point that was really made that it kind of sunk in for me was this leading traumatologist, Eric Gentry, kind of made a point that the majority of people who get into the helping profession are already lacking in self-care before they even get into the helping profession. And it's kind of one of those things where people have they've developed this way of thinking, this belief system that their value is based off of how they can help other people. And so they're already not taking care of themselves. And then they get into that profession that demands a high amount of taking care of other people, and then they never add to that self-care piece. So that's one thing that I know we've talked about this before on the show. I think it's very important that you have some kind of self-care daily regimen, doing something on a regular basis that is kind of your way of taking care of yourself and to kind of check in with yourself. For a lot of people, that could be some sort of exercise. It could be some kind of meditation. Anything that's going to be useful. One thing that I do sometimes too is, just playing with my dogs. Just spending time with them, because it helps kind of get out of my head a little bit, and it's always enjoyable. It's hard to frown and play with a dog.
Right.
But anything that you can do on a regular basis. For me, I've also started every morning I go for a walk now. Which is kind of nice just to get out of the house. So.
Yeah. No, I think taking a walk is really good. I also watch documentaries on YouTube. And so, like, that's one of my ways to just unplug and just, like, be curious and learn about something else that's, like, interesting and, like, has nothing to do with humanity. It's just, like, the cosmos and stuff. So I really like that. That's one of the ways that I do self-care. And then playing with my kids. I think that, you know, whenever my daughter makes me do, like, a tea party, it's the same thing. It's like she doesn't put up with me looking at my phone or trying to do anything else. Like, she's just like, sit still and let me paint your nails. And it's like, okay. And so I definitely get self-care just by, you know, again, hanging out with her. Number 3 is, and this seems obvious, guys, but it's something you do have to think about in a strategic way, building a support system. And so, you know, a lot of us think, oh, we have a support system because you can name 5 people that you know. But it's more than that. To build a support system is to almost kind of like in your relationships offer support in a meaningful way, but also rely on it. And that's where I think, you know, going back to Nick's point about, you know, helpers not being very good at self-care, I think we also really struggle with, I think, building our own support systems and having people that we check in with. Sometimes people are afraid to be a burden to other people. They don't want to be a bother. They just think it's better to not even talk about it. And no, you know, to build a support system means to surround yourself with 2-3 people that you can just connect with and say, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? And, you know, that's all it starts with is, hey, do you have a minute? Can I just check in with you about some things? And, you know, that's what a support system is just to start opening up and hearing yourself talk through it. And, you know, that could be somebody that goes for a walk with you. It could be somebody you Zoom with. It could be a family member, a friend. It could be, you know, the pod therapy support group, you know, that people are building into now. And I think that people are taking away those relationships and starting to use them outside of the group too. But everybody that hears our voices today should be creating a 2-3 person support group in their life. And, you know, letting those people know that you consider them your support group, that kind of signals to people that you're there for them too.
Mm-hmm. Number 4, create a work-life balance. So this one I think has become a little bit more complicated the more that we've got people working remotely and working from home. Now, again, like for me, I've been working from home for the past almost 2 years now. And it has become very important. I've noticed for myself, it's very important that I create a space at home that is my workspace. And then I don't use that for anything else. So if you have the ability to do that and you're one of the folks working from home, if you've got it, even if it's just an area of a room that you can kind of designate as your workspace, and then when work is over, either if you're going on a break, you go for lunch, or when the day is done, you leave that area and then you don't go back to it. To kind of try to create some sort of separation, because it's a lot easier to create that separation when you're driving into an office, you know, and then you drive home and then you've got that clear delineation between your work life and your home life. But if you're working from home, you kind of have to create it artificially, and that's a great way to do it. Also, another thing that I think is useful is creating a daily schedule. And not just for your work activities, but for your home activities as well. You know, because sometimes we don't do the things that we want to do, or the leisure activities, because we just want to kind of relax and we just kind of check out. Having a schedule and actually writing some of that stuff down, that, you know, like tonight my plan is from, you know, 6 to 8 p.m. I'm going to play my guitar, you know. Then it kind of forces me into doing that, and it forces you into some of those rituals and some of those behaviors for good self-care and to keep your home life on track.
Yeah, no, I love that. And in the support group, somebody had shared that same frustration that they work from home, and so, you know, work is home and home is work, and it's hard to know the difference. And Nick, one of the things I liked that you were talking about was leaving your workspace. Like, even if it's just eating lunch, not bringing the sandwich to your workspace, but like going into the kitchen and like being in a different setting. I thought that was really good advice. So, and sometimes hard.
Sometimes it comes to setting some clear boundaries with people too. You know, clear boundaries with family that, okay, this is my work time, but then also clear boundaries with workers, coworkers, that, okay, work's done. This is now my personal time.
I love it. Number 5 is applying empathetic discernment. So that sounds much more interesting than it probably is. So to empathize with people, of course, is to feel their feelings in kind of your own way and to let them know that you feel that. Discernment in this case is to sort of screen, and it's to sort of like check in with yourself if you're feeling somebody else's feelings and sort of discern and screen and filter a little bit to check in about what it is you're allowing yourself to sort of contain on their behalf, or what it is that you're actually touching there. And that's the empathetic discernment. And as therapists, that's something we have to train in too, because we do want therapists to really, in an honest and genuine way, empathize and to be real and to actually connect with another person. But we also train our therapists to like discern carefully when that's toxic for you, and to give yourself permission sometimes to just not. And to sort of screen that out, to filter it, and to sort of selectively say, I choose not to try to relate to that. And it's actually very healthy for you sometimes to do that. You might still verbally tell somebody that, you are there for them and you care for them, but to sort of intentionally and internally decide, I choose not to try to relate to that. I choose not to think that through. I choose not to. And so that's sort of a discerning sort of empathy that can be a little bit more of a filter.
Mm-hmm. Then number 6, recognizing the humor in things. We've talked about this. We talked about this, I think, in the last episode. Mm-hmm. Which is just the idea that it's okay to laugh at stuff, and we can make jokes about serious situations and still take things seriously. It's not an all or nothing deal. I remember there were times when we were working together at the rehab that I remember it was kind of a crisis situation in the moment, but there were times I remember thinking like, oh, this will be funny later. I'm not going to make a joke out of it now, but like right. I remember times sitting in your office, when we were dealing with stuff that now I can kind of look back and like, yeah, that's kind of funny.
Yeah, and even in the moment, there's been times when, I think, and this is true of all healthcare professions, you do have the ability to sort of joke about it and tease each other, and there's a gallows humor sometimes that even though you're treating, human suffering and human sicknesses, there's this ability to sort of laugh, not at the person, but like laugh about the situation sometimes. And that's healthy, guys. Being able to laugh at yourself at the situation. There's nothing wrong or disrespectful about that. Obviously you don't use it as in a hurtful way, and you don't use it to not take other people seriously. But internally, I think that's really helpful to recognize it for yourself. Number 7 is learning to let go. And that is a really good tip, and I think it's something that we all sort of remind each other to do, but not allowing yourself to ruminate on human suffering, not allowing yourself to stare at it for too long. And I think that also, contains within it choosing not to partake in news, choosing not to partake in Twitter, choosing, where you're going to let go of information as well. I think that that's absolutely valid. And I know for me, that's really helped me emotionally, is just learning to let go of what I don't have to address, learning to let go of news, learning to let go of situations that I don't have control over, and kind of choosing when I'm going to look at suffering and also choosing when I'm not going to.
Jim, are you still watching a lot of news every day? You still doing that a lot every day?
I'm watching Tiger King. That's 100% of what I'm watching.
Hey, okay,
that's
all right.
the only
Healthy.
thing I'm watching. I don't even know who's president. Oh, you guys want to hear something crazy?
That bitch Carol Baskins.
Listen, before we go on to number 8, this morning during our Easter Zoom, we're all talking, and my sister makes a joke about Carol Baskin, and my mom's like, how do you know Carol Baskin? And we're like, what? My mom lives in Florida. And we're like, who do you think we're talking about, Mom? And she goes, the big cat rescue lady. And we go, do you know who she is? You know that she's on Tiger King? And my mom's like, what's Tiger King? And we're like,
what?
How do you
Your
know
mom is
Carol
one of
Baskin?
the cats and kittens.
So listen, my mom.
Your mom is one of Carol Baskin's kittens.
Dude, she
talks
is.
to on her social media.
Hey, all you cool cats and kittens.
My mom goes, yeah, my sister's friends with her. Like, I hear about this lady all the time. Like, she's got the cat rescue. My sister and I are going to go. And I was like, Mom, she killed her husband. My mom's like, it's
go
Florida,
visit with her,
son.
just in public.
Yeah.
Just do it
and
in
I was
public.
like, it's Florida. What are you talking about? Everybody's. Why is that? Is that illegal?
If she wants to cover you with sardine oil, say no.
Yeah. Say no. Don't go.
Cologne, she's going to drool on you.
Yeah.
My sister and I were flipping out. We're like, this cannot be real. It's just like, yeah, it's Florida. Everybody knows that lady.
Of course. Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yep.
All right. Kind of where are we at? Number 8?
Yep, we're at number 8.
Acknowledging successes. This is a good tip. I think one of the issues that happens a lot of times too with compassion fatigue, when people start feeling really fatigued about it, is when they feel like they're not making any progress. Like when you feel like your wheels are just spinning and then you just can't care anymore. So I do think that being able to constantly look at what are the areas in which you are having an impact can be very helpful in avoiding compassion fatigue. This I can definitely relate to being a substance abuse counselor, because relapse is common. It happens all the time. And so if you're only focused on that, then you can feel like you're completely ineffective and not making any progress.
God,
so being able to remember like small successes and constantly remind yourself of progress that's being made can make a huge difference.
Yeah, I love that one. It's funny because as a therapist, I do the same thing. I actually have this habit that I've done for my own self-care professionally, where during a session, if a patient ever says something positive, like about me, like, hey, you helped me on this, or even if it's something like a compliment they're passing my way, like, oh, my mom says she's seen a difference in my behavior, and, she made a joke, like, you stick with Jim, you seem to be doing well, or whatever it is. I always write it. Like I have this kind of little notebook that I just write things like that in, and I go back to it because sometimes, especially when you're dealing with so many hurting people and what's going on in their lives, you can be swallowed by it, and you can think that you're not good at what you do and there is no success. And I have to keep that little kind of, reminder for myself, or else I'll be swallowed in it. And so I have to remind myself no, there's people that have done well and they're getting better and it's okay. And I have to come back to that. So I think that's a huge tip.
I have a letter in my desk from a client that wrote me 8 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And it was just a letter saying, thank you for everything. Here's where I'm at in my life now. Everything's going really well. I'm back to school. I got my kids back and all that. So I have that with me and will every once in a while. I haven't, since I've kind of gotten out of direct practice, I don't really need it very often. But when I was still, doing clinical work, I'd pull that out maybe, once or twice a month and just kind of read it as kind of a reminder.
I have something just like that. On my desk, I have a letter addressed to the president, telling the president how amazing of a therapist I am. And it's written by you. And
that sounds about right.
And I go to that all the time. And I just remember the nice things you've said about me. And how you
and it's
tried
nice
to get me a
because
Nobel
it's not
Prize.
addressed to any specific president. It's just to the president.
Dear current president.
Dear, to whom it may concern. Jim is amazing. Number 9.
Dear Sir or Madam President.
Dear Sir or Madam President of whatever race. Number 9, remain optimistic. And so optimism, guys, I know that that's something that can, again, seem cliche, but optimism is this life perspective. It's not just, summoning the positives. It's choosing to believe that it's going to be okay. And that's an interesting thing. And I think I have a lot of people that I've seen struggle with this. And Nick, I know you and I have talked about it with our patients before. Hope is a choice. It's a choice. And sometimes it's defiant of the situation. Sometimes it is defiant of even evidence itself. And sometimes it is just not going to accept that there are as many bad things as there are. And actually, I think that is healthy. And I think that summoning that optimism and having kind of a defiant hope that just sort of says, I choose to believe that it is going to be okay, I think that often brings us the very results that we were hoping in to begin with. And it's a great irony, and I think that there's a truth to that. But I think that all of us need to try as best as we can to remain optimistic, to summon the positives, and to just defiantly hope that it's going to get better, and it will. And I believe that.
But it's not like that one. I always like that because it's not even it's not a silly thing, because what you just read there and what you just said, it sounds almost like it could be, I'm going to hope in spite of everything. Mm-hmm. And the great thing is, most things turn out okay.
Right.
So you can really hope because of everything. You can hope because, I can say, I hope I don't get this COVID virus. And I hope I don't. And one of the reasons that I have hope is because most people won't get it.
Right.
The majority of people aren't going to get it. And so I can have hope that I'm not going to get it, and it's a realistic hope. It's not even just I'm going to hope against hope.
Right.
It's no. I'm going to hope that I don't get it. And if I do get it, I'm going to hope that it doesn't
Right.
Put me in the hospital. That's all, folks. I'm going to hope it doesn't put me in the hospital. And I can hope that because most people who get it don't have to go to the hospital. Right. And if it does put me in the hospital, I'm going to hope that I'm going to recover. And I can hope that because most people who get it recover.
Right.
And I mean, of course, there are instances where that's not the case, and that's terrible and that's tragic. But in most cases, that isn't the case. And so I can have that hope, and it's a realistic hope. It's a good thing to have.
Yes, I think overall, yeah, that's a good point, because overall things tend to regress towards the mean, right?
Right.
There's a status quo, and things tend to return back to that normal and that status quo. So yeah, that's a really good point. And we're actually going to get into later on kind of talking about survivor's guilt, which kind of ties into that sometimes. But yeah, that's a really good point. Hope doesn't have to be unrealistic. Hope a lot of times is realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a choice. You have to make that choice over and over again.
Yep. Kind of tying into that, the last one is elevate levels of compassion satisfaction. So compassion satisfaction essentially is the opposite of compassion fatigue. So it's kind of the pleasure you derive from being able to do your work, right? So, kind of being able to find those things that drove you into that line of work to begin with, and being able to kind of touch base and hone in on those.
Yeah. And also coming back to feeling good about being there for other people. And I think that one last point that I want to make on that is, if there are people in your life, listener, that have been there for you, people that hear you out, people that have supported you, even if it's just taking your phone call, or if it's just chatting with you, please thank them. Please contact them and just let them know that it means so much and you're grateful, because that contributes to compassion satisfaction. That could really fill up somebody's tank, and you never know who needs it. And so that would be my last thought, is if there's people that have been there for you, don't keep it a secret. Let them know.
Mm-hmm. Very good. So hopefully that is useful for those of you out there dealing with compassion fatigue. We're going to go ahead and take our first break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss socially isolating kids. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
This week's THERAPRODUCER sponsor is Smitty Scoop, and the week's first trivia question is, which African country was formerly known as Abyssinia? Abyssinia? I feel like this is
Wakanda. It's Wakanda.
Abyssinia. This can't be real. All right, if you know
totally
the answer,
real.
Go to patreon.com/therapy and post your answer on this episode, and Nick will let you know if you're right. Abyssinia. What African country was formerly Abyssinia? Patreon.com/therapy.
It's 100% real, and I'm 100% sure you mispronounced it.
Abyssinia?
I don't know. It's not my job. I just read it.
He doesn't know how to pronounce
I don't know.
it. He's just assuming that you were wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, that's fair. That is a fair assumption. That's probably.
You see what that is? That's an example of hope.
Yeah.
I hope that I'm right.
It's based in fact. It's based in
That's
previous
right.
Jim
experience.
is usually wrong when he tries to pronounce these foreign countries.
This is true.
Or things that you lay on your bed, like pillow.
Hey, it was funny in our support group. We had both Manu and Ulrika, and so it was really great. Because we're just like, here we go. All the names we can't pronounce, all in one room. This will be great. All right. Hi, Corona Therapy guys. I have a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old son that are out of school. They've been doing amazingly well, keeping occupied while stuck at home. They even play together. We kind of homeschool them during the week. They have a daily Zoom meeting with their class, and we try to keep to daily, weekly schedules with things like pizza and movie night Fridays. We've done some Zoom calls with friends and even tried games like Battleship over Zoom. Oh, that's a great idea. Last week, my 6-year-old said he misses his friends, but tonight he comes down from bed with real tears and says he really, really misses his friends. What can a 6-year-old do to fill his social void that's been created? We just found out that their school is closed indefinitely. How do you explain to someone that refers to this to the weekend as the day after tomorrow that they won't see their friends indefinitely? Thanks. Robert Paulson from Austin, Texas. Hey, Rob. Good to hear from you, man. Glad you're hanging tough out there in Austin, Texas. That's a good question, huh, Nick? I mean, first off, we need to play Battleship. I think we need to do that like today.
Okay.
Good.
Fine.
I'm glad
Done.
you're coming along with me on that.
That's like the one thing that we haven't disagreed about in the entire 3 years that we've been doing this show.
Yeah. Fine.
Fine.
Battleship.
Let's
Great.
do it.
Yeah, fine.
Let's actually end it. I think that this is where we should end the show.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Fine. Fine. So this is a really good question. I'm interested to hear your take on it, Jim, because I'm going to give a completely uneducated take on this. I don't have a whole lot of experience working with kids, number one. I have no kids, number two. But I feel like here's my take on this. I'll just get right into it. Robert, I think you're doing everything you can.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I'm hearing is that you're allowing the 6-year-old to express him or herself, that you're normalizing the feelings and the emotion, but then you're also not making false statements. You're just kind of accepting, like, yes, this does suck. It does suck that you can't see your friends, and you're just kind of allowing them to experience that. And you're not trying to shelter them from the emotion. You're just providing support as they learn how to deal with that disappointment. I think that's great. And I think that's all you can do. I mean, as far as you're taking all the steps as far as trying to connect them in any way that you can, whether that be through the internet, through, Skype or, stuff like that, playing games over the internet. You're doing everything you can in that sense. I think the best thing that you're doing is just being a support and allowing them to kind of process this and helping them discover ways of dealing with their emotions, without trying to stop the emotion, because I think that would be the problem. I think if you're kind of sending the message like, okay, here, let's fix this. Let's do something really quick so you don't have to experience this emotion. Mm-hmm. I think that would be more of a problem. I think just being there and being like, yeah, you know what? I feel for you. That's terrible. And it sucks not being able to see your friends, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
This is really challenging, isn't it?
Yeah.
And just being support. I think that's the best thing that you can do. That's my take on it.
Yeah.
What do you think,
That's
Jim?
good advice. No, I think that is true. My kids are very similarly aged to Rob's. I have a 10-year-old and then a 5-year-old. And so my 5-year-old is just like this, where, she still kind of thinks that we're in the weekend. Like, I think that somehow she hasn't put it together. But, like, if she starts asking, when am I going to see my friends at school, this would cause her to cry, And so it's something she misses. She wants to see her friends. And so she's super social. And it's tricky, too, when they're that age. Because when they're that young, they don't have those great, developed reason abilities yet. And so it's tricky because, like, they'll be like, oh, I just want to see my friends. And you go like, yeah, that's tough, man. Like, I know you do. And then they just yell at you and they're like, I want to see my friends now. And you're like, They're like, I want to go back to school now. And you're like, you can't. And then they just say, but I want to. And then, they kind of have their experience. And so, Rob, I think that Nick's right. I mean, First, I think there's that acceptance piece of also reminding yourself children are resilient and they are going to be okay. And even if they seem like they're having, a breakdown, even if this is really hard, and I think a lot of parents are really scared that this is going to forever imprint on their kids. It's going to traumatize them. I don't think it will. I think that kids of a certain age will be aware that this happened. I think they will look back on it actually with a lot of fondness, because I think a lot of parents are doing a good job of protecting the children from fear, and not, terrifying the kids about the virus, and not, allowing family trouble of finances and things to overly, weigh into the minds of the children. And so clearly you guys are doing a good job with that, doing like the schedule, letting the kids participate in the school stuff, having something to look forward to every week. Absolutely great idea. Earlier, I think it was in the Patreon, I was talking about the camp out that we just did, and I'm using air quotes. We did a tent in our backyard, and like did fire. And again, it was just about giving the kids something to punctuate, to say, oh, it's the weekend, it's Friday, we're going to do this fun thing. And it looks like you're doing the same thing. And, at the end of the day, we can't protect our children from, the sadness of loneliness. We can't protect them. We can try to engage them. It sounds like you're doing a good job with that. And yet this is still going to find its way to the kids. And I don't know that there's a way to rescue them from that. But I do want to at least reassure you as a parent, our children are resilient. They are going to be okay. This will not be a forever haunting of them. This is similar to summer break. And so you can turn it into that, and you can say, it's summer break, we're not going back to school until next year, which is probably kind of true. Indefinitely is probably not going to stretch all the way to like August and September. It just means it's going to be early summer break. And then, eventually there will be that socializing again. But, Rob, my heart's with you, man. I'm going through the exact same thing. And the thing I just have to remind myself as a parent is that these are the same children that equally cry whenever we've run out of Oreos. They are equally affected by small things. And so I have to remember, don't internalize this, because that will cause me to fear that they're not okay, and just trust the resilience. Kids bounce back. It's going to be okay.
Jim, trigger warning, next time you're going to do that. I did run out of Oreos this past week.
Jeez.
And it was actually rather traumatic.
I'm sorry for your loss. Yeah. My pantry right now has a bag of Oreos in it. And I was so excited. I was like, oh, sweet. And like I go running over there because I like noticed it when I was like digging the pantry for something else. And so I'm like, yeah, and I grab it. Dude, it's like carrot cake Oreos. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. I didn't even have one.
That's
yeah,
a waste
I was so
of an Oreo
angry.
cookie.
It is a waste of Oreos. I was so pissed, so I didn't even have one. I was like, no, I refuse to participate in this experiment. It's not okay. So
I actually
hear me.
I actually baked my own cookies this week.
Dang, look
for,
at you.
For those of you who aren't Patreons, we spent like 45 minutes at the beginning of the show talking about how terribly I'm eating. And I went out and I baked my own cookies. I took the cookie dough batter and I put it in the oven. I didn't make it from scratch.
Very nice.
But on the package it says, do not consume raw cookie dough. I'm like,
whatever.
Yeah, last I
That's
checked, this was America.
You don't tell me what to do.
Yeah,
Nestle.
Half of that was just cookie dough that I ate just raw. Anyway, I'm sorry, we got way off track. Somebody says cookies, and I just can't.
No, I think that this was exactly the right thing. I usually notice that warning as I'm licking the cookie dough from that part of the wrapper, and that's when I usually see it. Yeah. So anyway, Rob.
But yeah, thanks, Robert.
Give the kids cookies.
No,
I think that's what honestly, we were circling back to.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that's kind of the take-home message. But I think you're doing all you can. Again, don't shelter them from the emotion. Just empathize and provide support. I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, and do the scheduling thing. And for all the parents out there, I really am a big fan of doing something that sounds like a schedule. Trying your best. I mean, I think that the screen time is just happening now, and I don't think that's the end of the world. I think it's fine. I've been a person for a long time who's been saying that the negative effects of screen time have been greatly exaggerated. But at the same time, obviously, we don't want our kids to just be vegetables sitting there the whole time. So trying to punctuate every day with something different, just creating 7 days of routine. That there's movie and popcorn night on Fridays, and there's take a walk Thursday or whatever, like you got to come up with something just to have in your back pocket. And then I think printing that and putting it in the kitchen, and if they can't read, putting pictures on each day so that way they can see, like, oh, it's a clip art of, digging in a garden. It's like, oh yeah, today's the day we're going to go out and water the plants, or whatever. But I think that's extremely healthy right now to have something that just punctuates time. I think that would be a good idea. And then accepting that you don't have full control over this, but the kids are going to be okay.
Yep. Thanks for writing in, Robert.
Yeah, man. And thanks for all of your suggestions. Actually, wasn't it Robert? I think Robert is the one who suggested Ulysses S. Plant. So good job, Rob.
He may have also been the one that suggested, because I asked in an episode a while back, we should have a name for a group of pterodactyls.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
He suggested calling them a therapy.
A therapy of pterodactyls.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we have 2 more suggestions for the plant. Professor Addy has added the name Martin. Solid. And Linda B. Linda B. has added creme vanille, or Earl for short.
I need to correct that. That was not Robert Paulson. That was Abe Sloan, says therapy.
Oh,
So,
okay.
good suggestion,
Yep.
Abe.
But it was Robert Paulson who said Ulysses S. Plant, so you have my support.
Okay. All right.
As long as we're giving him credit.
I just want to make sure that we're right, even though we're wrong about everything else that we say.
Yes. At least there's one fact in there.
Exactly. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss survivor's guilt. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
This week's other TheraProducer sponsor is Jake Schneider. Today's second trivia question is, on which ship did Charles Darwin make his famous expedition, which led to his theory of evolution? Interesting. On what ship? Huh. Oh,
You don't
it's
know
the,
this?
I know what it is. It's the SS Minnow.
There you go.
That was it.
It was supposed to be a much shorter trip than it ended up being.
Yeah, it's supposed to be.
Luckily, that
3 hours
professor
tour.
was there, though.
Yeah,
He's able to make everything out of
Darwin
coconuts.
was there. Yeah, to make a telephone out of coconuts to get everybody the hell out of there. If you'd like to join Jake Schneider and make the show possible, you can go to patreon.com/therapy and sign up. Again, that's patreon.com/therapy.
We're back. You're listening to Pod Therapy. Our next question is about survivor's guilt.
All right,
Actually,
so
our next 2 questions.
2 questions, yeah. We actually have 2 letters. They're both short, and they both have the same topic, and so we thought we'd read them together. The first one says, "Hi guys, I'm struggling a bit. My life hasn't been affected that much by the COVID outbreak. I work for a company that makes components used in medical equipment, including ventilators. Understandably, my coworkers and I are considered essential workers. We are starting a second shift tomorrow to try to meet demand while still trying to keep social distancing. I am finding that my life hasn't changed much overall, and I feel really bad for those that are ill and without work at this time. I'm also wondering how much I might be in denial at the sheer extent of the situation currently. Obviously, my heart goes out to all those who are suffering from this illness and their families. At the same time, I realize how lucky I am to be healthy. I can't seem to get my head around the whole situation, and I'm just sort of floundering a bit. Thanks for listening and for putting together this podcast, Anonymous." And then here's the second letter. "Hey guys, I'm glad you are still doing okay, and may you both keep safe. My and others' emotions are very high, but I'm still going into work because I'm AP for a body shop and automotive is essential. Hubby has been working from home for about a month. He's in broadcasting. We still have both incomes, and we know that that is very special in these times. My question is, how do you cope with what is basically survivor's guilt? I'm constantly hearing about how my friends are losing their jobs and how unemployment is hard to get a hold of. It just breaks my heart, and I feel words don't help much at this time. Long distance hugs from Alaska, Frozen 49th Scoop."
Yeah. So this is these are great questions. I mean, survivor's guilt, this is actually something that's come up in our online support group that we did on Zoom. We talked a little bit about this. And so survivor's guilt, this is kind of the best way in my mind that I've been able to kind of define what this is and why this is a problem. It's basically creating a connection between one's own survival and one's control over the situation. So to make sense of that, it's kind of like saying that I survived this situation, therefore I must have had some kind of control over it. And that belief system isn't necessarily a problem until you go to the next logical step to that, which is, if I had control over it, why wasn't there something I could have done differently to have helped other people who didn't fare as well as I did? I think that's kind of the problem sometimes, where we feel like I'm getting through this okay, and it's that illusion of control. Like, other people aren't. I'm not. There's something I should be doing to help them out, because obviously it's working for me. Whereas in reality, I think most of that sometimes it just comes down to luck. I look at I've been watching a lot of nature documentaries on BBC America lately, because
Tiger King is not technically a nature documentary.
You shut your mouth.
I think it is. That
Don't
counts.
you dare talk bad about Tiger King. Anyway, but like, I've been watching like a lot of stuff on BBC America, and just seeing like, this one baby penguin gets eaten by a seal. The rest of the baby penguins aren't, focusing on like, oh man, what could I have done differently? They're not really processing it. It's just, and why did that one get picked? Just dumb luck. It was just there. It was in the wrong spot at the wrong time, and that just kind of happened. But I think it's that issue that when we start feeling like we somehow have control over a situation that we really don't have control over, then that leads us to believe that there's something we could have done to prevent it. I can definitely relate to the survivor's guilt. And I've since learned in the past week that my job is not quite as secure as I was hoping. I mean, my job is as secure as the people, the higher ups, are able to make really good decisions and keep it going. But working for, a university, sometimes decisions get made that just don't make any sense. And I hope that doesn't happen. But anyway, I do kind of have a little bit of that survivor's guilt in the sense that I'm still working. My job hasn't really been affected greatly. I'd say 90% of the stuff I was doing before, I'm still doing. But living in Las Vegas, I see the effect of everybody else that's getting hit by this, and it does kind of create this sense of like, oh man, I feel bad that I'm doing okay, So there are some things, that I've done to kind of work through that a little bit, which is, number one, if I have the ability to help other people, I do. So if I do order any kind of food, and if I, leave a tip, I leave a pretty big tip, bigger than I would normally, just because I do appreciate that they're still working. I also acknowledge the fact that, I live in Las Vegas. We've, our whole system, our whole economy is based off of entertainment. And when things get going again, I'm planning on going to a lot of shows, I'm planning on, supporting the economy again and jumping back in. So I've already kind of talked about ways that I'm going to be contributing and giving back to help other people out. Obviously, I'll also want to make sure that I'm saving, that I'm putting some money away, because I'm safe right now. That's all I know for sure. I don't know if I'm safe next week or the week after or the week after that.
Right. And, I think that one of the things I'm hearing in both these letters, I'm really hearing this from a lot of people too, in my sessions. It's something that I'm kind of catching two pieces of this. One, I'm hearing a lot of patients say, oh, Jim, I feel silly meeting with my therapist to complain about my problems or to work on my problems when there is so much worse stuff going on. And, I'm constantly having to kind of help people to see through that moment and realize that the world has always had terror and tragedy happening somewhere. And right now it's happening in a bigger way that's affecting everybody. And still, you are a human being, and you are still living your daily life. And yes, your relationships are still happening, and yes, your reality is still being formed. And so there should not be that sense of guilt to address your life and to still have your human problems. That doesn't change anything. The fact that it floods in Mississippi doesn't mean that Nevada's not in a drought. I feel for those people, but we still have our own trouble. So you need to understand that, I think, first, is that it's okay to still be in your truth, and there's no shame in that, and you've got to challenge that fear, because those are unrelated things, or that sense of guilt. And then the other thing here in this concept of survivor's guilt, we're hearing a lot of this in the support group. And we're hearing a lot of people say, I'm here in the group today to just lend an ear and my presence to other people, but I'm doing really good. I'm okay. In both these letters, they're like, hey, I'm gainfully employed. I'm doing okay right now. But, I am struggling because I'm not touching this crisis. And Nick, you and I saw this a little bit on the October 1st shooting that happened here in Las Vegas. It was the largest mass shooting in history so far in America. And, it was this horrible thing. But one of the things that was so unique about it was every human kind of trying to connect to it in a way. Like everybody that you talk to about it, they would have their own version of it and say like, I know somebody who was there, or I know somebody who dates somebody who was there, or, there's this like emotional connection to the tragedy, even for people that were not there at all. And I think we saw that survivor's guilt there too, where people almost felt this weirdness of not being touched by the tragedy. There's something about the bomb exploding in the other foxhole that leaves you both shaken by the reality of the thing and then sort of weirdly sad that it didn't hurt you, and sad that you're just walking away from it. Sad because of the loss of the other people and what their suffering is, but also this weirdness of being disconnected to it. And soldiers talk about that, police officers talk about that, first responders talk about that. So to both the writers and to all the people who are touching survivor's guilt right now, this is a real thing. And, obviously I don't think that you're in deep sorrow about it, but it exists. And I don't want you to feel that that's wrong or weird. I think it's a natural thing that I've seen in a lot of people's lives. And I guess the way that you challenge it or the way that you address it is first to accept it. To accept, I am doing okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not going to boast about it right now because I think there's a lot of people that don't need to hear that. It will not improve their lives to hear that. I'm also not going to pretend that I'm suffering. If I'm talking to another person, I'm not going to try to summon tears and find all the worst things that I can talk about because I feel the need to connect in sorrow. I don't want you to feel like you have to do that. I just want you to accept the reality. Yes, I'm doing good for now. I accept that. I am grateful for that. And then attend. Attend to your job, attend to your family, and don't feel ashamed of doing okay. And I get where that comes from, but I want you to challenge it and then to just accept that this is your reality. But yeah, you're likely going to feel this way for a little while, and I think a lot of people do.
And that's a good point because we're complex, right? We're not simple creatures. We can have more than one emotion at a time.
Right.
We can feel, happy and optimistic about one issue while also feeling hurt and sadness about another issue.
Yes.
And we need to accept that that's normal and that's okay. I think that's, as you were saying, I think that's a big part of it too, where people will feel happy or optimistic about something, but then feel like, oh, I shouldn't feel this way. This is wrong. That feeling is wrong. I think anytime we have that thought or belief that a feeling is wrong, I think that becomes problematic.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. And
I think.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say one other thing too that I've kind of been thinking about is trying to avoid the why me question, because you're never going to find a answer to that. There's never an answer to that that's going to be satisfying. That's going to end this thought, right? For me, I just kind of become aware of having that thought of that why me, and I just, for me, it's kind of a mental switch. Like when I have that thought, I'm just like, okay, well, there's no answer to that. So I'm not going to waste any more of my time thinking about that question. Why me? I don't know. Maybe I did something that put me in a good spot. Maybe it's just dumb luck and I had nothing to do with it. Either way, I don't know and I'll never know. So I'm not going to spend any more time thinking about it. When I hear why me, I just turn that off.
Right. Yeah, and I think that my last thought on this is, to address something that Nick said, which is talking about how humans are complex and we can hold more than one emotion. And, something else Nick said that was very untrue was that penguins are not equally complex and that they don't feel for their fallen comrades. If you'd really take the time, Nick, to get to know a penguin instead of just judging them through the television, then you'd know. You'd know that they carry those losses for the rest of their lives. So shame on you.
I disagree. I think I've met a penguin. They're all the same.
Oh, wow. That's just ignorance. Wow. Wow. Emperor penguins are different, than
All penguins are the same. Change my mind.
Penguins are people too. Anyway, to all those who are going through this. No, damn it. That's ignorant.
They're really not. There's a whole different word for them and everything.
Penguins are not people. You've just been life coached.
Oh. Yeah. Oh, anyway, to all those who are going through this, from the opposite side of this, not suffering right now, accept this reality. Do not feel dread or fear or sadness inside that, you're not, connecting to it. Challenge that, but also accept it. There's an acceptance of this. You didn't do anything to earn it. It just is. And then you just lean in, and then you try to help those you can. And that's the most important piece too. Give back. Try to help those that you can. If you have good income right now, look for ways that you can be supporting a food pantry in your neighborhood. Anywhere that you can, make sure that you're trying to help. We're all in this together.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for writing in, both of you.
Except for the penguins.
Yeah. Screw the penguins.
How dare you? Just ignorance, both of you. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Never go back to SeaWorld. You don't appreciate them. I've slept in the penguin habitat on a Boy Scout field trip, so I feel that I've gotten to really know the penguins because I have slept with them.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Sleep with the penguins, then you'll get it.
Penguin fucker.
Then you'll really get it. Yes, that's what I was saying. Sorry, was that not implied?
It was heavily implied.
Take a penguin as your lover, and then you will understand them. Until you've walked a mile in a penguin. You don't know. Anyway, I have no apologies. End of the show. I have no apologies.
Fair enough.
Yeah, we want to thank our two new THERAPALs. Thank you, Ronald Engholm, and thank you, Abe Sloan. Abe Sloan, who also gave us the idea for calling a group of pterodactyls a therapy of pterodactyls, which, good idea. I'm sticking with Gaggle. I still think Gaggle's the right one.
Yeah, we'll see. And we especially want to thank our bosses, the Elite Eight and mysterious and shrouded Illuminati members of our fan club of the TheraProducers. Thank you, Smitty Scoop, Jake Schneider, Robert Brownie Jr., Ment, Kayla Lansbury, David Data Scoop, Violon, Judy Schneider, Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop, Dr. Ben Don, and ex officio board members Elio Dare and Crazy Manana Scoop.
If you would like to hear this episode uncut and unedited and enjoy our spontaneous side projects, you can go to patreon.com/therapy, and thank you for supporting mental health. That's all the time that we've got for this week's session. We want to thank our landlords, the Ice Cream Social Podcast, and thanks to those of you who contributed to our show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, pod therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Share this episode with someone who needs it by opening this episode's description in your podcast app and copying and pasting that link we provided into your social media. Don't forget, you can find us at facebook.com/podtherapy, at Twitter @PodTherapyGuys, and at patreon.com/therapy.
Do you want to submit a question to the show? Ask anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. I'm Nick Tangeman.
I'm Charles Darwin.
Thanks, and we'll see if you're playing it next week.
I'm playing with
Darwin's
Jim's kids.
Charles Darwin's a guy who did appreciate the penguins, I think.
The finches.